good afternoon. I know it's the end of the second day, and there's me and one other presenter between you and drinks, but never mind. You'll listen, it's fine. So yeah, my name's Matt Nunn. I'm from Microsoft. I'll give you a little overview of me in a sec, and we're going to talk about disaster relief and a charity I'm involved in actually to help in disaster relief situations. But I thought I'd start with just a little bit about me. So it's already said, I like to sail even when the weather's really bad. I just thought that was a really good picture of me trying to that was me after I just trying to get the boat in. I've been at Microsoft now for 15 years. I've been a developer for 25 years. I'm currently a product manager working on the Azure team, but I've also worked in Office, SQL Server, and Visual Studio, as well as our cloud products. I live in Seattle, in downtown Seattle. I have 3 dogs and 3 cats, which is way too many for the size of my house. Although 2 of them are corgis, so they don't really count because they're not very big. And I have
beat them up.
some of them, yeah. Yeah. Although corgis, of course, corgis, very short, little squat things, but herding dogs. Yeah? So they love to herd people, animals. And so the reason they are so short is they used to use them to herd cows. And the key with a corgi is that when they're herding a cow or something like that, when the cow kicks, it just kicks over their back. So it can't actually kick them, and they can just carry on herding it. So they also use them for duck herding. I don't know what that was about. The other thing I enjoy is endurance racing. So I don't drive, unfortunately. I'm too old for that now. But if you recognize the person in the picture there, probably. So that's Patrick Dempsey from Grey's Anatomy, who I met when we were doing an award. And then I'm also associated with an organization called Team Seattle. They run a 911 GT3R in the IMSA series in the US to raise money for Children's Hospital. So essentially, they are funded by Gabe Newell, who started Valve software, if you're familiar with Valve. And they basically go out and race, and they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for cardiac care at Seattle Children's Hospital. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about something else. We're here to talk about disasters. And at some point, someone's going to read the slide. No, they're not.
42.
Okay. There you go. We have someone who did 42. So the Earth is mostly harmless. Yeah, we all live on it every day. But disasters do strike, and disasters can strike anywhere. We're all West Coast people, so we live daily with the threat of earthquakes. I personally can see the volcano from my house. Luckily, I know that the way the volcano is constructed, it's going to go the other way, so I'll be fine. But disasters are an international thing. They affect people all over the world, and they affect people completely unpredictable. This is the Philippines Typhoon Haiyan that happened. This is the aftermath of that typhoon. I mean, it leaves nothing behind. I mean, it is completely devastating. And how do you recover from something like that? If you look closely, you'll see there are actually a couple of people in that picture. One of them looks like he's wearing actually a lampshade to protect himself. But the one thing that actually almost always survives are the cell towers. They're self-powered. They have their own generators in them. They are built incredibly strongly. So even in all of that devastation, the chances are you will have a cell signal. And even if the cell towers don't survive, we can bust them in on the back of a truck. And people like Cisco and AT&T will rush out to disaster regions with portable cell towers to get cell service back up and running. One of the main reasons they do that, obviously, is communications for all the people on the ground. But this is actually how they often find people in disaster regions, is by pinging cell phones. And they can actually look for cell phones, get GPS coordinates off them, and find people in the rubble, in the disaster areas. You have a question?
Yeah, our cell phones could also be nodes, but they are crippled in that regard. Is there more or less a movement to say, look, let's create for exactly this disaster, that instantly you have a network?
Yeah, I think it's not moving that direction at the moment. There's some people are doing things to allow you to kind of check in from your cell phones very easily, to allow you to be able to ping for cell phones in the local region. But I understand that you could make a network out of cell phones as well. And that's actually something that would be interesting to continue to look into for this particular situation. So we have cell coverage, and we have hundreds, maybe thousands of people turning up to help in these disasters. Yeah? So Doctors Without Borders go to disaster zones. They go and help treat people. They go into places where, and a disaster doesn't have to be a typhoon. It could be a disease, like the Ebola disease that we had recently. So we have specialists who fly out and do these things. We have large teams of people who come out and need to work together. We need to coordinate them. We need to give them the ability to be able to work in a meaningful way, to be able to do all of this kind of rebuilding. And this is essentially how they work today. So this is actually Fujiyama. This is the incident response room. It's all paper. It's whiteboards and it's paper. This is how disaster response teams work. If it's really big, you may end up with some technology making it in there, but typically we walk in and this is exactly what we see in a room. So Satya earlier this year, actually, just a few weeks ago, you're all familiar with Satya. We quite like him. He asked this question. What are the challenges that mankind faces? How can technology help? And then what is the contribution that Microsoft can make? But you could replace Microsoft there with any large technology company. How can technology help?
No, you can replace it with any technology. We're the
Okay,
smallest
any.
technology
That's true.
company with the biggest heart.
That's true.
We got more heart than anyone.
And we will actually, that's what I'm going to go there. Any technology company could do the same thing.
You don't have to wait until you're a billionaire to make a positive change.
This is true. This is very true. So the first piece of technology, given that we know we have connectivity, is the cloud. Okay, this is one of our data centers. So this is an Azure data center. But the cloud has really changed the way you can respond with technology to a number of these, to disasters like we see. Just the availability of the back end, the reliability, the global scale of the cloud, it just surpasses anything we'd been able to do only 4 or 5 years ago. And it doesn't, whether it's our cloud or our company, our next door neighbor's cloud, or the neighbor's cloud down here. They can all help in great ways. The other thing, of course, that we've just announced, that Satya just announced, is that we're going to be giving cloud away to nonprofits. So we've announced $1 billion worth of cloud services over the next 3 years, which should support about 70,000 nonprofits over the next 3 years, and the cloud for public good. The other thing is just the availability of mobile devices. So the combination of the cloud and the fact that everybody has mobile devices means that we can do something different in these disaster relief situations. This is actually a training exercise, but again, you can see nice old mobile devices. That's what they have, and that's a little challenge I'll talk about as we move forward as well. But this is a training exercise. This is Czech, in Czechoslovakia, in the Czech Republic, sorry, not Czechoslovakia anymore. Ooh, my Czech friends would kill me for that one. And they're using mobile devices to coordinate. But I ask you these questions. This is what people often think when I talk about disaster relief, and I'm not a doctor. What good am I? Yeah? I can't build a house. I'm afraid of power tools. I can't just up and leave and fly halfway around the world to go to this disaster zone. I don't have money to give to these people. So how can I help? Well, the thing is that everybody in this room, going back to your point about even the smallest organization or individual person, has some form of skills that they can give. And what we did was we said, we want to go and create something that allows that to happen. And we created a thing called the Humanitarian toolbox. It came from a crazy idea about three-ish years ago, about just over 3 years ago. And the crazy idea, myself and a friend of mine who actually runs a podcast called .NET Rocks, sat down and said, you know, what is it we can do in these situations? You know, how can people give and help? And we came up with this wild idea, and we didn't know whether this would work. Can we crowdsource development of disaster relief software? Can we go and talk to every developer? And I was actually doing, I've done developer marketing for most of my life. I am a developer myself. Can we get developers from around the world to come together and to build software for disaster relief? And we thought, well, we don't know whether that will work, but we'll give it a try. So we started off down a path of putting together these ideas, using some of the newer technologies, using collaboration tools. We started in Visual Studio Team, what is now Visual Studio Team Services, which is our ALM backend from Microsoft. We fairly quickly after that migrated out to Git, which is both supported from inside the Microsoft tools as well as you can use GitHub. We moved out into that world and found that you could collaborate in ways that you couldn't before. You didn't all have to be in a room or around a server. You could now be anywhere you wanted to in the world. And then we started running hackathons. And now we had a reason to run a hackathon. It wasn't just, oh, build something or follow this path. You had a real reason. We could come with a project idea and put people in a room and get them working together. And because of the collaboration tools that we had, they could continue working on it once they left. So they weren't stuck just in that room. And not only did we find out that it's a great way of building disaster relief software, for the people who participate, it was a great way of learning how to build software. They had other people to learn from. They could work collaboratively with different people. So if they didn't know a particular technology, they'd turn up. And while they were learning, they were doing something good with their time. So it's very, very powerful. And we found that the hackathons were great starting places. And then it spread to around the world. So as I said, you can leave. You can keep your check-ins. You can keep working on that piece of that code you were working on. You can pick up new items. We use typical Scrum methodologies to run these in a very agile way. So there's a product backlog that's getting groomed by Scrum Masters, and then the people contributing are just picking off items from the product backlog, no matter where they are in the world. So all of a sudden, we now have this engine of people giving their time and their skills to the development of software that's going to help people all around the world. I had a question about, are you working with the UN? One of the key things that we discovered was that you can't actually do this from nothing. So if you put a set of developers in the room, or you say, we need to have a project or come up with something, nothing will happen. Okay? People can't self-start in that way. They actually need guidance. They need a seed that they can grab hold of. And we tried for a year or so to just let these people kind of get started and move themselves forward, and that wasn't working. We weren't actually making any strides forward. So what we did is we started working with a number of charity organizations, Crisis Commons. These are a few of the ones that sponsor us directly, but we work with many others as well. So Crisis Commons, Geek Without Bounds, Net Hope, who are out there actually working across all of the charities, all the NGOs, to understand the needs of those organizations. What we do then is we bring back those needs, and I'll talk about a couple of the projects in a minute. We bring those needs back, and we put a first skeleton, two-person team normally, 1 or 2 people. We'll have a Scrum Master for each of the projects, whose job it is just to kind of look over it. And they've self-selected themselves as wanting to be very involved. Most of them are now on the board since we became a 5013C charity. And they run the projects. And what we do is we get people who are very close to us to kickstart the first wave of development so that we have something for people to step into. So we will do that ourselves. We will kickstart. We will get kind of like a very first sprint done. And at that point, we will go then to a hackathon. We will start getting people in from the hackathons. We will move those ones forward. And then we can start adding people from around the world who can just come in and self-select to join into these projects. And around the world, we go. And then obviously we have... and that wasn't from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And then we also have technology partners as well. So obviously Microsoft is helped out at the outset. Actually, we've stepped back a little bit from them, but we still work with them quite a lot, with the organizations quite a lot. Telerik is a component provider who provides components into this. And we have a number of other people, but we're mostly open source with our software. And that's really the way we like to go. This is a couple of examples of the type of product that we've been asked to build that address very specific needs for disaster relief organizations, and in some ways could actually go beyond this. So the very first one we worked on and we built is a thing called crisis check-in. So we talked about the fact that there are lots of people who rush out to disaster areas, and essentially it's all paper-based. How do I know who's there? How do I know what they're doing? How do I know what their skills are? What thing are you going to work on? There was no easy way of doing that. So we actually built this fairly simple piece of software. And one of the scary things with any software used in these situations is that often it gets built at the time of the disaster. As opposed to, and they build it again, and then the next disaster they build it again, and then the next time around they build it again, which is a very inefficient way of doing it. So by having an organization that is looking after software, we build it once, we follow what they're asking for, and then we can maintain it and distribute it at any time that it needs to be used. So crisis check-in is kind of like almost like a contact list, a phone book of the people who are there, people what their skill sets are, how do we coordinate them. The other one that we're working on is the Humanitarian data bus. This is all about trying to get organizations' data to work together. I was listening earlier on today to one of the presentations talking about how there's lots of different data coming from all these different places. It's true of NGOs very much so. Like the UN's data isn't going to be shared with Geeks Without Bounds data. They're not using completely different technologies. They're using different APIs. It's like, oh my good grief. You all have lots of information that we need. How do we, using the cloud, pull all of that data together, aggregate it, and provide it out in a meaningful way to everybody? So this is a second one that we're working on at the moment so that people can make better decisions. They can be operationally efficient when they're on the ground. They can have past learnings. A third one that we've been looking at is actually just a video training portal on a mobile device so that as disaster relief workers are coming into an area, they can look at what's actually happened on the ground. They can kind of see, oh, this is the situation, this is where we are now, and they're ready to hit the ground running rather than having to come in and then figure out what's going on once they actually hit the ground. So those are a couple of ideas. And that's disaster relief was the big thing that we decided to kick off and do. However, as we moved forward with this and we started talking to more NGOs, it wasn't just about this crowdsourced disaster relief work. We actually looked at and we talked to a number of organizations, including the Red Cross, who obviously are very well known for disaster relief. But how many of you know about their work about disaster prevention? So sometimes you need to be able to just go in because you can't predict that a disaster is going to happen. But there are lots of potential disasters that you can actually avoid or potentially avoid. So we worked on a project for the Red Cross. It's currently in trial in Chicago called Already. The Red Cross have hundreds of thousands of smoke detectors to give to people who don't have smoke detectors in their house. They needed a way to coordinate the distribution of smoke detectors to the people who actually needed them. And they didn't have a way to do that efficiently. But they will go in, they will install it for free. So we actually took on the project called Already, which, as I said, is out in trial at the moment. And it's designed to help them figure out who doesn't have smoke detectors, then catalog them, send people in, understand when they were installed, understand when they need to go back and check them, and keep them up to date so they're always working, to prevent disasters caused by house fires. You know, smoke detectors, as you know, save lives. So it's being built completely by volunteers. We kickstarted it off actually with a set of volunteers inside Microsoft from our engineering teams, and now it's been taken up. We're coding on it on hackathons. We have a constant list of items that we're adding to it. And it's a very open set of technology. The repository stuff is down there if you're interested in going and having a look. But it's technology all over the place. It utilizes the cloud. It has a web front end. It has a responsive web front end that's built with, you know, multiple different pieces of technology: Bootstrap, Hammer, you know, jQuery, and then our cloud services are, you know, mostly our services. But then you look at your cross-platform mobile app, and it's all over the place. You know, Node, Moment, Apache Cordova. Brings me back to an interesting point. So if you take yourself back to that photo of what those disaster relief workers were using, one of the interesting things we discovered as we went down this line doing mobile apps was that we'd have initially taken a technology called Xamarin, who are based in the Bay Area, which allows you to build native apps for iOS, Android, and Windows Phone. Okay, that's great. Turns out many disaster relief workers are using BlackBerries. That's their phone of choice. Very efficient. I mean, so we actually had to switch out our technology in order to be able to target BlackBerries very easily. So we moved to Cordova, which is a web-based technology, an HTML and JavaScript technology, in order to be able to deliver onto those BlackBerry devices. You know, it's an interesting problem to have when, you know, it's the least popular phone is actually the one that they all use. And it was a finding that was very interesting to us as far as, oh, that's a bit of a surprise. So what I wanted to do, though, was, you know, we talked about kind of crowdsourcing and how we get people to come together. And I have a little video, and there's actually a series of videos that kind of go on from this, talking about this already project. But give you a little bit of a feel about how people who get involved and developers who get involved actually feel about this.
The only way for me to volunteer and help in any kind of humanitarian effort has been, okay, well, put down Visual Studio, put down Git, put down anything that you know about working in your craft, and go pick up power tools. And I'm like, no, you don't have enough Band-Aids for me to build a house for someone.
How can we get volunteers involved and not just have them do manual labor tests? There's more you can do, there's more impact you can have.
Software is a superpower, and getting all the superheroes to fly in the same direction is a trick.
This sort of a code-a-thon, it's really exciting to see all of these volunteers come together.
And just focus on getting it working.
So we put all these people together. We've got all this functionality that wasn't there before.
This is just a fantastic opportunity, A, to work with some great people, and B, to use our skills as software developers to actually build some software that can help people.
I'm making a difference. And that's the core of what matters to me.
So at this point, most of our projects are getting at least one check-in a day, every day, from people distributed around the world. We've had developers kind of come in and say, hey, I don't know JavaScript, but I want to help, and I want to just get involved. You know, what do I need to do? And you know, they pick it up and they pick up an item off the list, and off they go and write some code. So I go back to our picture of the world and say, you know, how can you get involved, or how can you use this learnings also to help in your world? So the thing we have proved is that given the right environment, given the right set of impetus for people, people will get involved. They will give their time to these sort of things. They will use it. You can use it to help them learn as well as help them give. Many organizations will actually match that time to whichever organization you want to give it to. So if you're spending time coding on this project, lots of organizations will do matching in money or other things or software or time, whatever it may be. But think about, you know, if you're interested in joining up, you can go to, you can actually go to htbox.org. There's a sign-up sheet there. If you just want to have a look at what we're doing, you can go to our GitHub. page. We have a number of projects out there on the GitHub page. We've got a new one we're kicking off. Again, a little bit in between, not really disaster relief. It's actually for tracking missing children so that parents can record information, understand what to do if their kids do go missing, whether they be runaways or whatever happens, which is actually obviously the most common. And we're looking at other projects all the time coming in from different charity organizations. We're also starting to become an aggregator of projects. So we're talking to a team who, when the Ebola outbreak hit, a set of data scientists went out and built an application to track Ebola cases, to learn when Ebola was not there anymore, which we heard obviously in the last few weeks. It's like there's no new Ebola cases happening. But we're looking at taking that application, moving it into Humanitarian Toolbox to maintain it, and then make it so that other people can use it for different diseases and different uses. Because the data scientists aren't in a position to do that. They had the knowledge at the time, but we can actually move that forward. So there's a ton of opportunities to get involved with us, but there's also a ton of learnings to take away for yourself if you're looking to try and develop a base to do things. So I'll leave you with this one. Which is not the answer to that question, by the way. What is the answer to that question? So long and thanks for all the fish. Thank you very much for your time today.